I'm done with dating apps. I really am. While you guys feast your eyes on the insane view that's right behind me, I'm going to go ahead and explain why I'm completely done with dating apps, despite the fact that they seem to be the most popular way for men and women to meet nowadays. So, first reason I quit dating apps was because a lot of the matches I got pretty much went nowhere. I mean, I've had some very, shallow, trite one-night stands and hookups or temporary short-term relationships, but ultimately that's not really what I'm looking for, and I don't really like it to be that way with girls a lot of the time. I'm more of a relationship type of guy, but the apps pretty much promote that, and we're going to get more into later how the apps don't really encourage you to delete them and stick with one person later. But I really just don't like how a lot of the relationships I've had have ended up, and some of that's partially on me, I presume, because, every relationship, there's two sides and all that. But it really just comes down to, the matches I would get, if you message them, not all of them are going to respond, first and foremost. I'm sure there's numbers backing, the amount of people who are just on dating apps for validation. Apparently, there's a portion of people on dating apps that are actually already in relationships, and that's crazy. But I just don't like matching with all these people. Some of them you meet with and they don't even look anything like the picture, and that's pretty awful because you realize then and there, even if the person ended up being cool, there's a low chance of that because they display a lack of integrity when they show you these pictures of when they were a runway model and now they have 2 kids that they didn't tell you about and they're overweight. It's just not really portraying who they actually are. You're putting your best foot forward, and I understand that. You have to do that to some degree. But I think it gets to a point where it's just out of control. And you see people and you're like, is that even the person I matched with? I don't think so. And when all the matches pretty much go nowhere, or they're short term, or they don't really add anything to your life, a lot of guys could probably relate to this. You end up seeing it as just a big waste of time. I'm in my 20s. This is the time where I'm supposed to be learning social skills, building up whatever it is I want my career to be, and starting to have an understanding of who I am as a man and all this. These are things that you're supposed to be figuring out. And it's nice to also build social skills with the opposite sex or the same sex, whoever you're attracted to. It doesn't really matter. But, it's really not a productive way of spending your time when you're on dating apps because you're not even really developing the social skills it takes to talk to women when you match with them on dating apps. If you're a part of the elite percentage of men and you get all these matches, you're not even really doing the thing of approaching them or talking to them in person, finding a shared community or interests that you're both passionate about and breaking the ice that way. You're not really doing that. You're kind of just in this market that is entirely based on superficiality, and your personality, you can show your personality in some ways on dating apps, but it really is pretty much entirely looks based. If you don't look a certain way on dating apps, you're just not going to get that many matches. And if you do, I would get an average amount of results. The last time I had Tinder, I think I had 20 likes at the time of deleting it, or 22 likes, or if I remember correctly, but it was something like that. And a lot of the girls that I would match with, I was just all right, well, cool, but you meet with them, you talk with them, and it's kind of wooden a lot of the time, the conversation, and it doesn't go anywhere. And I just found it to be a pretty big waste of time for me, and that's one of the biggest reasons I got off. I mentioned the superficiality. That's a huge aspect of why I got off the dating apps because, first of all, as I mentioned, it's pretty much entirely looks based, and we've talked about the stats a bunch of times on this channel about how women match with pretty much the top 5 to 10% of guys on dating apps, and I'm not in there, but it is what it is. I still got some matches. I still probably got a lot of more matches than a lot of other guys, so I'm thankful for that. But, I don't look back at any of the hookups I had and really appreciate them because it didn't do anything for me. It's yeah, sure, you get laid for a little bit. You get the validation of a woman wanting you and all that and being super into you. But when that's gone, if you didn't get anything from it, you didn't learn anything, it was just, animalism, your lizard brain telling you to put it in the hole, what do you really take away from that? Pretty much nothing. You're pretty much, it's like a rocking chair. You're moving back and forth, but you're not making any progress towards whatever it is you're trying to do a lot of the time. And I understand some guys don't want to do the relationship thing, but I'm not really that way. I would like a relationship, but I understand that it's becoming more and more difficult to obtain that. But when it's entirely looks-based, as I mentioned earlier, you don't have a shared community, you don't have, shared values that you really know of. It used to be back in the day when you met somebody, you met them at some type of club or church or school or college, or, well, I mean, that is school, but you get the idea. You would meet someone somewhere where, oh, hey, I'm obtaining a higher education so I can get a better job, and all that. That's right there. It's a conversation starter. What do you want to do? What's your goal in life? And then you start talking about these things. And, if you are attracted to the person, great. I think you should be. I think it is necessary that you're attracted to whoever you're dating, but it used to not be everything. My mom was really attracted to my dad when she met him, but ultimately who he was, his drive, his character, and all that is what made my mom stay with him in the end, because, my parents are like a match made in heaven, and that's a beautiful thing. I love seeing what a successful relationship is, and I loved growing up with that, but it's really, really rare to get that type of connection on dating apps. I think finding them through a shared community or in person, whether it be work or school or anything like that, I feel like that's a much better way of building a sustainable relationship than the dating apps. So if that's my goal, then I don't really find dating apps to be congruent with that. So that's another huge reason I got off. But every now and then you go through like kind of a dry spell where you don't get a lot of matches, and you lower your standards and you start using the dating apps for validation purposes. And I fell into that trap. And, I would start swiping on girls that I'm not even into, but it's just the validation of like, hey, does she want me? And, because sometimes you don't feel like enough, in this world where we're constantly comparing ourselves to one another on social media, on dating apps, on, everything, on TV, all this stuff. You really start to think you're not good enough because you don't get matches on these apps, when the data shows that, most guys aren't getting anything on dating apps. Like an overwhelming majority find very little success. And, if you want to drop your standards and, temporarily fulfill your lizard brain and your animal, your carnal desires to smash a woman that you're not attracted to, and you end up hurting her in the process, like, hey, at least you got laid, but like I said, you're just putting more hurt into the dating world, which is already filled with hurt. And a lot of that hurt is where a lot of these trust issues and this lack of connection between the two genders comes from. And when more hurt people are put into the dating market, you're starting to turn good people who are optimistic into hurt people after long enough. And that's just a huge issue, because how many times do you talk to somebody now where they're genuinely optimistic about their dating prospects? It's not super common. And I know what it's like to feel like you're not good enough when you use these apps. That's part of the reason that I had to get off, because after a certain amount of, swiping and getting like results that are unsatisfactory in my eyes, I'm just like, man, this isn't standing to serve me anymore. I really don't think that it has a place for me in my life anymore. And, since I've deleted them, I feel better in the morning. I'm not swiping anymore, obviously, because they're off my phone, and I just feel better, man. I really do. And like when I meet a girl and I talk to her now and I get her number, because that still happens, I'm doing all right. It's just when you meet someone in person, even if the relationship goes nowhere, I feel like you already have a better chance of it going somewhere if you met them in person and you have that shared community or that shared interest, whatever it is. I feel like that just increases your odds of actually finding a real relationship or a real connection with somebody, because ultimately that's the whole point of dating, is that life gets incredibly difficult as you get older. And there are some things that as you get older become harder and harder to do, because, when we're younger, we're strong, we're healthy, we have the ability to do all these things. But as you get older and your body starts to wear and show all this age, and it's not working the way it used to, it's nice to have someone you really trust and you really love to help you through life, and to, be there to hug you and support you when, shit goes down. Family members die, you get a life-altering injury or illness and all that. It's great to have somebody there to support you. And I understand it's becoming harder and harder to find that, but when you meet somebody in person, I just feel like you have a better chance of finding that. And the final reason I got off the dating apps is because the apps are not designed to be deleted. I mentioned this very briefly earlier in the video, but that's the truth, man. When you get on these apps, they do not make money when you meet your person and you get off of them and you never use it again. The apps want you to keep coming back and to keep exploring your options. For men, they want you to keep swiping until you get a breadcrumb and you get some scraps and you feel validated now. And for women, they want you to be overwhelmed by the abundance of options that you will have, and they want you to have such an abundance that you can't pick, and that you stay on the apps, you stay unhappy. And the more unhappy you are, the longer you're going to be on the dating apps, and the more unhappy you are, you're also going to seek validation in other ways, and not always the healthiest ways, because the love and admiration and passion that you receive from someone who really wants to be with you and has burning desire to share the world with you and to merge your paths together, that person, that feeling is going to outweigh any possible feeling of validation, of short-term fulfillment that you acquire from the dating apps. I fully believe that. If you're feeling any of these things, or if you resonated with this video at all, you should probably get off the dating apps too. I'm saying that as a friend, as a peer, as a homie, is get off the dating apps, meet someone in real life, you know, grab your sack, go talk to a woman in real life. But no, this is why I got off the dating apps, and I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. If you're new here, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching to the end. This is Iceman, your favorite greasy Italian wop, signing out.